At 6 feet below grade, the Earth holds a constant temperature between 55 and 67 degrees Fahrenheit, depending on latitude. This is called the deep Earth constant. It does not fluctuate with seasons. It does not respond to surface weather. The thermal mass of soil absorbs heat in summer and releases it in winter. Phase shifting delays the peak surface temperature by weeks to months before it reaches underground depth. Amplitude dampening reduces temperature swings by up to 95% compared to the surface. This is not a theory, this is thermodynamics. Measured. Published, documented by the United States Department of Energy, and deliberately excluded from every residential building code in America. Subscribe and hit the bell. Every share helps preserve what they tried to erase. The average American household pays approximately $2,000 per year on heating and cooling. That is $167 every month to fight a problem the Earth already solved. HVAC systems account for 40 to 50% of total household energy consumption. The heating and air conditioning contractor industry in the United States generates $158.4 billion per year. The residential construction market is valued at $1.41 trillion. Every dollar of that economy is built on a single architectural assumption: that homes should sit on top of the ground, exposed to the atmosphere, fighting every degree of temperature change with electricity and gas. That assumption is not based on science. It is based on revenue. Before there was architecture, there was Earth. Humans lived in it, not on it, in it. 15,000 years ago, migratory hunters in Europe dug into the ground, covered their shelters with turf and soil, and insulated themselves from surface weather using nothing but dirt. 5,000 years ago, the people of Skara Brae on the Orkney Islands off northern Scotland built an entire village into the earth. Stone walls, earth-covered roofs, shared drainage. The settlement survived North Atlantic winters for 5 centuries without a single mechanical heating system. It is still standing. It is now a UNESCO World Heritage Site. 4,000 years ago, the Chinese began carving homes into the Loess cliffs of Shanxi and Shaanxi provinces. The Loess earth is structurally uniform and compacted, providing stable building material with no need for concrete or steel. These are not relics. 30 to 40 million people in northern China still live in earth-sheltered homes today, mostly along the Yellow River. They have lived this way for millennia. The homes maintain a stable interior temperature year-round. They require no furnace, no air conditioner, no ductwork. The earth does the work. In North America, almost every indigenous nation used earth-sheltered structures to some extent. Earth lodges, pit houses, sod-covered dwellings built into hillsides and riverbanks. When European settlers arrived on the Great Plains, they built sod houses for the same reason. Not because they lacked ambition, because they understood the physics. Dirt insulates, dirt stabilizes temperature. Dirt does not burn in a prairie fire. Then the 20th century arrived. And the housing industry decided the earth was something to build on, not in. In 1901, a Sicilian immigrant named Baldassare Forestieri arrived in Fresno, California. He had come to farm citrus, but the soil was hard-panned, dense, rocky, nearly impossible to cultivate. Summer temperatures in Fresno reached 110 degrees. The heat was brutal. So Forestieri started digging. For 40 years, by hand, with a pick, a shovel, and a wheelbarrow. He carved an underground network of rooms, passageways, courtyards, and gardens roughly 10 feet below the surface. He planted citrus trees underground, grapes, pomegranates. The trees grew toward skylights he had carved through the ceiling to the surface. The fruit ripened. Guests came to visit and found a world 10 degrees cooler than the furnace above ground. Forestieri never installed a heater. He never installed a cooling system. He lived in that underground complex until his death in 1946. His creation is now a California registered historical landmark and is listed on the National Register of Historic Places. One man, one shovel. 0 energy bills for 40 years. In the 1960s, an architect named Malcolm Wells looked at the American landscape and saw a disaster. Strip malls, parking lots, asphalt covering every acre. In 1964, 3 events changed his career. He visited an underground house exhibit at the New York World's Fair. He stepped into a small underground theater at Frank Lloyd Wright's Taliesin West in Arizona and found it delightfully cool and comfortable in the desert heat. And 3 men who mattered deeply to him died in the same period. Kennedy, Pope John the 23rd, his own father. Wells got serious. He published an article in Progressive Architecture in 1965, calling for the end of surface building. In 1971, he wrote in Architectural Digest that the act of building is an act of land destruction. He proposed 15 properties that every building should emulate from wild land: create pure air, create pure water, store rainwater, produce its own food, create rich soil, use solar energy, store solar energy, create silence, consume its own waste, maintain itself, match nature's pace, provide wildlife habitat, provide human habitat, moderate climate and weather, be beautiful. He spent the rest of his life designing earth-sheltered buildings and writing more than a dozen books about them. His colleagues called him the father of modern earth-sheltered architecture. The industry called him a fringe eccentric and moved on. In 1971, a man named Mike Oler built an underground house in the mountains of Idaho for $50. Salvaged posts, wooden planks, polyethylene sheeting, dirt. No foundation, no concrete, no HVAC. He called his method post-shoring and polyethylene. The house stayed warm in winter and cool in summer using nothing but the thermal mass of the earth around it. He heated with a single wood stove on the coldest nights. He lived in that house for over 40 years at 6,000 feet of elevation in Idaho. He wrote the $50 and Up Underground House book. It sold hundreds of thousands of copies and taught an entire generation that shelter does not require a mortgage. In 1981, physicist John Haidt built the first Earth-sheltered geodesic dome in Montana using a concept he called passive annual heat storage. The principle was elegant. Do not insulate the house from the Earth. Insulate the Earth from the atmosphere. Haidt designed an insulation and watershed umbrella, a cap placed a few feet above the roof of an underground building, extending outward 20 feet in all directions. The umbrella kept rain and surface temperature fluctuations from reaching the earth surrounding the house. The house heated the earth through its walls all summer using passive solar gain through south-facing windows. That heat radiated slowly back through the walls all winter. The result: after one summer of solar gain, the late winter floating temperature inside the dome was 66 degrees Fahrenheit, with no furnace, no boiler, no heat pump, no utility connection. The temperature sensors buried 12 feet from the north wall showed soil temperatures had risen to 64 degrees, 20 degrees higher than normal. The entire ball of earth within the umbrella had been heated by the house sitting at its core. Haidt calculated that an entire year's worth of heating and cooling energy, 3 to 5 million BTU, could be contained in the earth, extending 20 feet from the walls of a house. The accumulated resistance to heat flow over that distance blocked 90% of energy loss. The accumulated resistance to heat flow over that distance blocked 90% of energy loss. The interior temperature floated between 76 degrees in summer and 70 degrees in winter with zero auxiliary heating or cooling. $0 per year, forever. In 1998, 5 families in Hockerton, Nottinghamshire, England, built an earth-sheltered housing community. The Hockerton Housing Project was designed as one of the first zero-energy residential developments in the United Kingdom. Earth-covered roofs, south-facing glazing, high thermal mass, rainwater harvesting, on-site sewage processing, no central heating system. The homes have maintained comfortable interior temperatures for over 25 years. The project remains operational today. In Coober Pedy, South Australia, where daytime temperatures exceed 120 degrees Fahrenheit, more than half the population lives underground. They call their homes dugouts. NASA's Earth Observatory has documented that inside these homes, the temperature remains an almost constant 73 degrees Fahrenheit year-round. Ventilation shafts run to the surface for fresh air. The town has underground churches, underground hotels, an underground bookstore, and an underground bar. No air conditioning, no heating. The rock does the work. The science has been settled for decades. Published studies confirm that earth-sheltered homes save between 47 and 80% on energy costs, compared to conventional construction. The United States Department of Energy states on its own website that earth-sheltered homes are less susceptible to the impact of extreme outdoor air temperatures than conventional houses, that they require less outside maintenance, that the earth surrounding the house provides soundproofing, that they offer extra protection against high winds, hailstorms, tornadoes, and hurricanes, that they can cost less to insure. The science is not the problem. The problem is money. The residential construction industry in the United States is worth $1.41 trillion. That number depends on lumber, on framing, on roofing, on siding, on exterior paint, on gutters and downspouts and fascia boards and shingles that need replacing every 15 to 20 years. An earth-sheltered home eliminates most of those material categories. The roof is dirt. The walls are covered with earth. The exterior requires no paint. There is no siding. There are no shingles to replace. Maintenance costs collapse. The HVAC industry generates $158.4 billion per year from heating and air conditioning contractors alone. That revenue depends on every home in America needing a furnace, an air conditioner, ductwork, thermostats, filters, refrigerant, and a technician to service it all every year. An earth-sheltered home with passive annual heat storage requires none of it. Zero heating, zero cooling, zero service calls, zero replacement units every 12 to 15 years at $7,500 to $22,000 per installation. The insulation industry, the roofing industry, the window replacement industry, the weatherization industry. Each one depends on the fundamental inefficiency of a wooden box sitting on top of the ground, exposed to wind, rain, snow, hail, sun, and every degree of atmospheric temperature change. An earth-sheltered home does not fight the weather. It avoids it. And the institutions that should be promoting it are blocking it instead. Zoning laws in most American municipalities were not written for underground construction. Many explicitly require minimum above-grade wall heights, pitched roof lines visible from the street, and setback standards based on above-ground structures. Building codes under the International Residential Code do not prohibit earth-sheltered construction outright, but they do not accommodate it either. Navigating permits requires custom engineering, special structural calculations for earth loads, and inspectors who have often never evaluated an underground dwelling. Banks refuse financing. Mortgage lenders require comparable sales data. There are almost no comparable earth-sheltered homes in most markets. Without comparables, appraisers cannot assign market value. Without appraised value, lenders will not approve a loan. The few financial institutions that consider earth-sheltered homes often require larger down payments, higher interest rates, or classify the property as non-conforming. Insurance companies follow the same pattern. Despite the fact that earth-sheltered homes are nearly immune to tornado, hurricane, hail, and fire damage, many insurers will not write a policy because they have no actuarial data for the category. The safest structure you can build is the hardest one to insure. The system is not designed to prevent bad construction. It is designed to protect an economy that depends on inefficient construction. Here is what the Earth offers, for free. At 6 feet below grade, the temperature holds between 55 and 67 degrees Fahrenheit in most of the continental United States. In winter, when the surface air drops to zero, the Earth around an underground home remains 55 degrees. It takes vastly less energy to warm a space from 55 to 70 than it does to warm it from 0 to 70. In summer, when the surface hits 100 degrees, that same underground space holds at 65. No compressor, no refrigerant, no electricity. The Earth absorbs the excess heat and holds it. Phase shifting means the peak summer heat does not reach underground depth until fall, when it is needed. The system is self-regulating. It has been self-regulating for 4.5 billion years. An earth-sheltered home built into a south-facing slope with passive solar glazing, an insulated umbrella extending 20 feet from the walls, proper waterproofing, and a gravel drainage system around the foundation can achieve a year-round interior temperature between 68 and 76 degrees Fahrenheit, with zero mechanical heating and zero mechanical cooling. The construction premium is approximately 20% more than a conventional home, driven primarily by reinforced concrete walls, waterproofing membranes, and additional excavation. That premium is recovered in energy savings within 7 to 12 years. After that, every dollar saved is pure return for the life of the structure, which, being made of concrete and earth, can exceed several hundred years. The average conventional American home lasts about 50 years before requiring major structural renovation. An earth-sheltered concrete structure protected from weather, ultraviolet degradation, wind load, and thermal cycling can last indefinitely. The maintenance is nearly zero. There is no roof to reshingle, no siding to repaint, no gutters to clean. The landscape grows on top of the house. Skara Brae is 5,000 years old. It is still standing. The earth beneath your home is 55 degrees right now. It has been 55 degrees every day you have lived there. It will be 55 degrees every day after you leave. The temperature does not change. The thermal mass does not diminish. The energy is free. It has always been free. The housing industry, the HVAC industry, the roofing industry, the insulation industry, and the lending industry all need you to keep building above ground, to keep fighting the weather, to keep paying $2,000 a year to heat and cool a wooden box that sits on top of the solution. Forestieri dug for 40 years in Fresno and never paid an energy bill. Hohler built a house for $50 in Idaho and lived in it for 4 decades. Haight built a dome in Montana that floated at 66 degrees in late winter with no furnace. 5 families in Hockerton have lived without central heating for 25 years. Half of Cooper Pedy lives underground at a constant 73 degrees, while the surface cooks at 120. The proof is not hidden. It is buried, in the most literal sense. Under 5,000 years of evidence and 100 years of industrial economics that need you to never look down, the Earth is still 55 degrees. 6 feet below your shoes? Right now. If this story opens something for you, subscribe and hit the bell. Every like and every share preserves what they tried to erase. The next story opens soon.